What do you think about making pictures? You know a little bit about it.
Well, I do. I know it's a grind. I'm not an actor, but I've watched many pictures being made, and it's a grueling profession. But I think pictures even sometimes more than the stage. I've seen people shoot a scene over and over and over again. Not even a whole scene, as you know. A take can be just one line or walking through a door, and it must be maddening to do that.
Well, it is really, but it's not as maddening as doing the same play over night after night, and even a couple matinees a week. That gets very trying. Repeating the same thing. I don't like repeating things. In pictures, of course, we had to keep doing the scene until we got it right, but that wasn't so bad. But to go on the stage night after night in a play. Most people love the stage who are on the stage, but I never learned to love it because it frightened me so. But everyone tried to encourage me to do it because I have a good voice, only it's too soft. It's hard to project it across the footlights. They had a little trouble with me.
I had a conversation the other evening with Buddy Rogers, who was telling me about the car he brought from you. Tell him a bit about that car, or any of the cars you had.
Well, when I first came out here, I rode on the streetcar to the studios. And then my father came out here and decided to settle down out here as long as I liked picture work and I wanted to go to work. So he bought a car. It was a Buick. And he let me drive it to the studios. I had a contract for that time, of course. And then later on, I got a very sporty roadster. And then that's about the time I married Bert Lytell. And then he got a Lincoln, not town car, but a great big limousine. And he took my roadster, which was very sporty, and I took his limousine with the chauffeur. And we just got along fine because I like to have a chauffeur drive me then. And then after we got a divorce, I decided to trade the car in for a show car that I saw on the floor at the first General Motors auto show. And Harley Earl was the designer of this car, and maybe he still is the designer. He was up to about 6 years ago. And this was his first car that he designed, and it was so beautiful. It was the LaSalle town car. And the chauffeur I had, I think he's the one who taught me into it. He said, "Oh, you've got to have that car." He said, "I can just see myself driving around in that car." Well, he did. When I'd go up to the Hearst Ranch on some of the parties that they gave up there, my chauffeur was seen driving around in that car, and he had a great big white Tom Mix hat on, sitting in the back seat, and he had a boy driving him, and he was the big shot. So I didn't fire him for that, but I did fire him and hire him about 5 times during the years that I had that car, because he could put that car together again, take it apart, and he drove perfectly. He drove just like I drive, and I never got nervous with him as long as he drove like I did. I'm a fast driver. I'm a good driver, though. And he'd take me to the beauty parlor, for instance, and I would come out and no car, no driver. I couldn't find him. I'd walk up and down the street. Of course, I had to fire him. And then finally, his wife worked for me, too. She was my maid, and they lived over the garage. I had a garage apartment for them. And she left me before he did because he got to playing around. And I noticed that he would wave to a little girl in the corner of Highland and Beverly. In those days, girls stand on the corner selling lunch boxes, to people, working people probably. You don't remember that. You weren't born yet, I guess. Well, anyway, I could see him in the mirror. He'd be waving to her, and my mother and father lived with me at that time. They lived with me until they passed away, and my mother saw this girl and her little child going up the back stairway to his garage apartment. And she ran out. She says, "What do you mean? Don't you know this man's married?" And she says, "I don't care if he has a dozen wives." But my mother wouldn't stand for anything like that. So I guess she left all right. I wasn't in town at the time. During those days, I loved going to New York. I'd like to travel, but I like staying home now. I don't know why. Maybe it's because New York isn't the same. I used to have so much fun there. But I was a big star then. And I think when you're a big star, everybody wants you, you know. And I was invited every place. Even when I played with Al Jolson in Wonderbar, I would get telegrams ahead saying, we have a nice suite engaged for you at this hotel, certain hotel, always be the best hotel, and you will be our guest. And that doesn't happen anymore. But I suppose all the stars go through that.